The nature of predators. 156 memory transcription subject. O Hovnar Tarva of the Venlo Republic State Standardized Human Time, March 16, 2137. The election required a colossal effort, but each voter's voice was heard. The digitization of the election campaigns meant that votes could be cast electronically, in the privacy of their homes, and well in advance of the opening of physical polls. Several identifiers, including biomarkers, were used to verify their identity. Early votes could be changed at any time up to the closing of the ballot collection. However, in the interests of not singling out anyone with connectivity problems or who couldn't access an electronic device, in-person voting facilities were open on the big week. Many citizens preferred being part of the herd and exercising their civic rights among a crowd. The results from the large percentage of online voters would be accessible almost instantly, but physical votes from each city, outpost, or colony had to be forwarded by local governments. I hadn't felt this nervous during my first election, yet the uncertainty of who would emerge victorious today gnawed at me. Polls were indecisive, with turnout from certain demographics likely to play a major part in who was victorious. A major setback was that most human citizens had been barred from participating in the election, which could have pushed me over the edge. The soul of Skalga was at stake, in my opinion, and I wasn't sure how much of our progress Veln could reverse if he took office. His isolationism would bring us further away from humanity at the worst possible time. I've done everything I can with social media outreach and campaign ads. I've visited every major city and run myself ragged going to rural villages and colonies where my popularity is subpar. Any voters I could sway in Veln's strongholds would increase my chances. With the polls due to close in only a few minutes, I found myself watching a compilation of attack ads that Veln had spent significant money circulating on the airwaves and the internet. It wasn't as if I was innocuous on this front. I'd gone after his meteoric rise as the nominated challenger, claiming he gained the most signatures by inflating his accomplishments within a small colony's government. Veln isn't ready to handle the responsibility of all Venlokind, my tagline had proclaimed. I did see my opponent as clever, but someone who lacked a moral backbone or a good vision for our future. My rival was clever enough to claim his platform worked on any scale he'd tackled so far, and slammed my policies by clipping out of context quotes. Tava has proven that she cannot handle the responsibility for Venlokind. Her unilateral decisions have given you no say in your future, the ad narrator declared, as images of predator disease patients being led out of facilities by humans played on screen. She takes her ideas straight from the new predators. This was her claim about humans' knowledge of predator disease. A clip of me from the debate played on screen. They have a better idea than we do of what's actually predator behavior. Do you want a puppet leader that trusts humanity's judgment over our own? Do you think predators have better ideas than us? The footage showed my rival touring an exterminators guild on his colony and signing documents. Veln is not a follower. He's a leader who will listen to what the people want. You know who to vote for. I leaned away from Noah on the couch and held the remote out of his reach as he tried to cut the feed. Glim seemed apathetic from his position in a reclining chair. In his current state, he would have done more harm than good to my message. It would look like the Terrans were coercing him into supporting me. The next ad in the compilation rolled, going after me on my ties to Earth again. While Tarva was running around, chasing the human ambassador, Veln was working for his constituents. Listen to her own words about how much of her policies and recent efforts have centered around Earth, a different narrator read. My eyes were narrowed, with indignance on screen. We've been through many stressful situations together, from nearly getting shot down en route to Alpha, to our efforts to stop the genocide of Earth, to working hand in paw with the cattle rescues that my government and his bargained for the release of, and now to our collaboration for the summit. Not only did Tarva admit to negotiating with the Arxer, a true predator scourge that eats our children, and ate her own, she also listed all her accomplishments as things on humanity's agenda. There is no difference between our planets under her leadership. Behind the narrator's words, images played of me running with Meyer and Noah, as humans stampeded and smoke rose in the background. By her own admission on the debate stage, your goods will cost more because of higher value-added taxes to fund Nazi's adventures. And for all of that, the question remains, what has she done for you? Is your planet better now than it was 6 years ago? The clip ended with the words, "I vote Veln." No more federations. Kalash, flashing atop a picture of my rival holding a baby Fenlil. I couldn't deny that he was excellent at the political game, and it made me seethe. Noah didn't want me to wind myself up, pouncing toward me to grab my wrist. He pried the remote from my grasp and switched it over to a live stream of a news channel. The human winked before pointing to a clock on the mantel. I flicked my ear in acknowledgement, hearing activity through my campaign headquarters. My diplomatic advisor, Cheln, peeked his head. Right on time. The polls have closed. I prepared speeches for both outcomes, ma'am, and sent them to your holopad. Thank you. Whatever happens, it's been an honor working with you, I acknowledged. How are the exit polls looking? Depends on the jurisdiction. You're polling poorly in rural areas, colonies, or the places with the strongest exterminator guilds. Dayside City is leaning toward you, which is good. Noah bared his teeth. Think good thoughts, Tarva. You have a heart of gold. They'd be silly not to re-elect you. Maybe. We both know the amount of change I've brought has put me in a precarious position. The polls seem to have slid toward him since the debate. I thought I did well, but those sound bites about humans are hurting me. I'm glad you've stood up for us, even when it's not easy. What do you think, Glim? The rescue offered a blank stare. I think we're going to lose. Not because people all hate humans, but because people hate how Tarva is edged way too close to you. And they're right. You two literally bite each other's faces. Chelm pinned his ears back against his head. Wait, what? Glim's not well. You're dismissed, Chelm, I said hastily. The diplomatic advisor couldn't depart from the room soon enough, and he rejoined the larger crowd assembled around a massive screen in the lobby. I would be there when the results were expected to be known, but in this election, it could come down to the wire. Noah seemed aggravated at Glim, despite the fact that the sweet human rarely showed anger toward any Venlo. Even his patience had limits, though he forgot about the rescue snide remarks as his eyes darted to our television set. The Terran beamed and pecked me on the cheek, as the 64% who voted early had tilted 50.8% in my favor, compared to Veln's 49.2%. However, I knew better than to celebrate this early, with it being this close and the rural villages being the ones that skewed toward in-person ballot casting. It would have been preferable if my margin here was wider, rather than depending on the last third of the votes to be favorable. I cozied up to the astronaut with unspeakable weariness, shooting a warning look at Glim, not to mouth off again. After the unfathomable stress of the past few months, I wasn't sure I was ready for this claw-biting, long night waiting for results to come in across our space. Dayside City, the capital and home of the most humans on Skalga, was among the first provinces to send results. 65% of the in-person voters called for my re-election, though I wasn't sure how much I should read into that. The ones who were Terran dissidents had long since moved out of the city, so if anything, it was discouraging that nearly a third had sided with Veln. Other major cities turned out even less promising results, with me narrowly holding the physical votes in almost all, except for Tanalu City skewing 53.4% toward my opponent. That still padded my lead, and Noah seemed ready to take a victory lap. I respected his optimism. I don't know why, but I've had a bad feeling about this election since the day began. Maybe it's just my nerves. Internally, I'm not confident I have the support of my people. Even if I do win, it's clear from these margins that the planet is divided. That was the last good news we'd had in the evening. Rural villages, like Selgal Falls, home to Glim's aunt, poured in their tepid amounts of votes, but several skewed around the 75% mark in Veln's favor. While one small settlement wouldn't have been enough to make a dent in my lead of millions, together, they were eating into the metropolitan vote. These people had always been traditionalists, and were known to be less than cordial with human refugees. Lack of interaction with Terrans meant they never had the opportunity to change their minds. "You can't win them all," Noah had said, trying to massage the tension from my shoulders. The issue was that I wasn't winning any, and that my campaign efforts in those areas didn't seem to have stopped the bleeding. It was a blowout in every single village, which I could imagine Veln feeling the swing of momentum. The colonies only lowered the gap further, and the numbers made my heart plummet. My opponent had been actively ferrying voters on his home colony, Milna, to the polls, and even been on one of those transports himself to plead his case in his already strongest territory. I thought it had been a foolish play, since he already had their votes as a popular governor, but rehashing his beloved tenure paid dividends. Milna was one of the last colonies to report their totals, because they nearly doubled the record in-person turnout. Veln was seen as their candidate. Veln is a hometown hero who hasn't forgotten his roots, if you ask voters on Milna, Jonik had announced on the election coverage broadcast. Off of Venlo Prime's soil, she's seen as the governor of humans. Perhaps it would have been wise to distance herself more from the UNA. Not good. Colonies never feel attached to affairs of the homeworld, but even ones without Veln the visitor are bringing turnout. They have a stake in the humans' arrival, and the ones who don't are no more inclined to vote than past elections. My numerical advantage had been millions away from my opponent, and seemed insurmountable to Noah, had shrunk to a sliver as the night progressed. The rural villages whittled down my advantage to half of its original count. The unexpected turnout at Milna was the start of a continuing skid. By the time all colonies had reported, my lead was at a mere 493 votes. I fielded calls from the UN Secretary General, wishing me luck and thanking me for everything I'd done for humanity, which I think was Zhao's way of saying they thought there was a good chance I might lose. The Earthlings must be scrambling to figure out how to deal with a possible Governor Veln, and they didn't want to spring goodbyes on me if I was unseated. Jonik perked his ears as the news broadcast returned from a break. Hello. If you're tuning in expecting us to hear who the new governor of Skalga is, we have one province outstanding, the science settlement of Iliga, which has been under sandstorm conditions and is just making contact now. I'm told we can expect results from them in a few minutes. What an election it's been. Polling in Eliga has been a toss-up, and it wasn't visited by Tarver or Viln. This could go either way. We should go outside with the others, Noah whispered. Governor or not, I'll always love you. I wrapped my prosthetic tail around his wrist. I love you too. If I had to do everything all over again, the only thing I'd change is sending that distress signal in the first place. We'll get through this. Of course we will. Worst that happens is you retire from public service, and we get to run off together like I've imagined for months. That's not so terrible, right? It is what I want, but humanity needs me in charge of Skelga to preserve our close alliance. The Venlil can't go back completely, love. You gave us a chance. You made sure millions of people who never would have thought about dealing with predators did the same, and you show our species to boot. You've done so much, we couldn't ask any more. Don't worry about humans, because you've done more than your part on our behalf. Emotions swelled in my throat as I marched toward the doorway to enter the lobby with the rest of the staff. These could be my last moments as the leader of Skelga. Regardless of what Noah said, I felt responsible for the efficacy of my campaign strategies. How could I justify keeping our relationship quiet to maintain my office if I lost my position to a populist charmer like Veln? How could I have any say in decisions affecting millions of Terran refugees on this planet? I cared about what happened to the Earthlings. That was the sole reason I sought re-election, all for their sake. Noah glanced over his shoulder toward Glim. Do you want to come with us and watch the results with the group? We'd love for you to join us. No, the rescue mumbled. Why not? You were a part of this team as much as anyone else. I helped Tava because I owed her my life, not B because I think she's a fitting governor. A real Venlil wouldn't have argued for an Arxer to speak at the summit. I hope Veln wins. I flinched at that sudden admission from the cattle rescue. How could he oppose my candidacy after my policies freed millions like him from abhorrent conditions? I had volunteered to help with the reintroduction program because I cared about these mistreated Venlil. A scowl took over my astronaut's features, and his fist clenched beneath my coiled tail. Noah didn't speak another word to Glim, instead hurrying out with me to the lobby. I tried to clear that exchange from my mind, but the sinking feeling that plagued me all day had reached its crescendo. I didn't have a good feeling about how the votes from Eliga would shake out in my gut. Ma'am. Cam flicked his ears in acknowledgement as we fell in beside him and Sheln. The moment of truth. I've argued on behalf of your policies, even when I didn't agree with them. You couldn't have been more right about humans. I'm proud to have served your administration. Thank you, General, I whispered. Thank you for your service to our planet. Let's save the goodbyes or congratulations for after we hear the results, though. Copy that. An eerie silence overtook the lobby area as dozens of staffers saw Jonik scan some new information off screen. The Venlil journalist took a moment to prepare himself, savoring the suspense of the ultimate verdict. The knowing glint in his eyes confirmed that the results of the election were known, before he ever said a word. Eliga flashed orange to signify that it had been tallied on the visual aid map. All we needed was to hear the counts that would usher me into a second term, or elect a new governor in my stead. It was all I could do, not to bury my eyes in Noah's chest and press my paws over my ears to avoid hearing. The impending news was almost too much to bear. Jonik cleared his throat. Eliga has submitted its votes, and with the last outstanding province in, Dayside newsfeed can now declare the new governor-elect. After winning the city's vote by a percentage of 54.6%, the 103rd governor of the Venlo homeworld will be. The election would be delivered with his next words, signaling what the voters had chosen for the future of Skalga. I hoped that, whatever decision they had reached, it would turn out well for both the Venlo people and our sincerest allies. The Nature of Predators, 157 Memory Transcription, Subject, Arva, Exiting Governor of the Venlo Republic, Date, Standardized Human Time, March 17, 2137. Jonik straightened his ears and pronounced the name of the next straightened his ears. And pronounced the name of the next governor. Veln. My campaign had ended with the dramatic loss of my title. I'd given my concession speech in a daze and issued thanks to the United Nations people for all the work we'd done together. With nothing left to lose over our secret, Ambassador Noah and I stood hand in paw at my desk as I prepared to hand over the governor's duties to Veln. My most trusted advisors were also present, though Glim was a no-show after his barbed words yesterday. When I tried to broach the subject with my human astronaut, he deflected, saying he was concerned about how I was handling the loss. I believed that was a true statement, but Noah clearly was furious at Glim's opinionated outburst toward me. It was customary for some staff from previous administrations to be kept on, if they were viewed as competent in their duties. Cheln had been a holdover from the previous organization to me. Military advisors like Cam would have had a better shot at sticking around, had the Venlo general not been a strong proponent of the human alliance. It remained to be seen how firebrained Veln would be as the man in charge, and how thoroughly he would cash in his campaign promises. The governor-elect strolled into his office. Having given an acceptance speech, I didn't bother to watch on the reception lawn. I can be gracious in defeat, even if I'm worried about what will happen to our alliance with the humans. Veln can't undo all the progress we've made, after we're in this deep. The people spoke, and they didn't have faith in my agenda, so Veln wrapped up his speech to arrive in my office with exact promptness, on the dot for when the highest seat in Skalga was officially his. Away from where the cameras were rolling, he was all business. There was a shrewdness in his eyes, though he made a point not to acknowledge Noah and I's intertwined grips. The new governor took the long way around the desk, to avoid passing us as a couple, and leaned back in the chair. He flicked his ears in satisfaction, and gestured to the recently cleared-off desk, as though imagining where his personal possessions would go. He then took inventory of the advisors that showed their faces, before finally speaking. You should consider yourself relieved of your position, the former colony governor spoke, indicating to Noah with his tail. I want a real diplomat from the United Nations here. Someone who can talk policies, negotiate our disagreements, and represent your government on a technical level. I know humans have people like that. Ambassador Williams offered a tight smile. I'll reach out to them. Someone from the embassy staff will be in contact within the day. Good. But don't go yet, because there's more to that message. Some of what I tell Cheln may apply to you. My diplomatic advisor will do much more legwork than under the previous administration. Are you up for that, Cheln? Do you want to stay on? Cheln gave me an apologetic ear flick. Sir, I'd be happy to continue to serve the governor's office. Very good. Then I want several orders on my desk today, so start taking notes and preparing papers for my signature, press releases, and social media posts. Yes, I do understand the last one isn't your job, but I want a cohesive communication strategy. You're going to work with my online presence manager, so we're on the same page. Understood, Governor Veln. Okay, my first order. Businesses and municipalities have the right to require visors for binocular-eyed individuals. I couldn't hold in my gasp of outrage at the thought of humans being forced to conceal their eyes on our streets. It was better than Veln attempting to throw the Terran refugees off our worlds and revoke their citizenship, but this insulted a piece of their very existence, implying that they were offensive to look at. Such an infringement on the rights of human residents who were equal under the law, singling them out for eye placement, made my prosthetic tail stiffen with fury. How much damage could this do to our alliance with Earth? How would I feel out on a date with Noah if he was forced to wear a visor? Remember how the external pressure to hide the predatory aspects of his appearance caused him to devalue his own worth on Arthur. I won't let anyone hurt Noah, not even the rightful governor of Skalga. Alumni, how dare you? I hissed, flailing my tail with outrage. Noah squeezed my wrist. It's all right, Tava. Calm down. You don't have to stick up for us anymore. I want to. You're people just as much as anyone else, and I won't stand for anyone treating you like monsters. Veln swished his tail in a patient gesture. I admire what you tried to do, Tarva. A member of your campaign staff told me about you and your human lover. I could have gone a lot further than vague insinuation on the debate stage, but I didn't. I don't hate humans, but I find Einhart highly inappropriate. Tell me, do you think that's the sort of thing that should have been disclosed to the public? Oh, fucking Glim. The rescue said he wanted Veln to win. He must have been upset when my rival didn't use the information to ruin me. No good deed goes unpunished. I don't see what my personal life has to do with denying millions of people the right to show their face. I spat, fury causing my pitch to climb. I'll explain for Noah to pass along to the United Nations in a moment. But what I'm saying, Tarva, is that the people don't want change. Not all at once. They want stability and to feel in control of their destiny, Veln announced, as if it were self-evident. Shit, if I went as all out as my campaign promises, they'd resent me too by next election. What are you saying? I'm saying I won't uproot any lives, but I read the planet's temperature and I plan to take it down a notch. I'll give them enough of what they want to avoid civic unrest, and enough of what the humans want so that they can live with me. Public perception is what's important, and I plan to be a very popular governor, like I was on Milna. You think humans can live with a regression of their civic right? You still haven't addressed what this order means for them. I have plenty of time. I was getting there. Rural villages were asking to have humans banned from setting foot in their towns. Frankly, I'm not sure why they'd be suicidal enough to go there, but I digress. Businesses want to be allowed not to serve humans without fear of reprisal. So all in all, this is a lukewarm policy, and I have valid reasons. Noah Williams, do you know how many Venlil have been hospitalized on this planet due to binocular eye-induced fainting since the Battle of Earth? The astronaut shifted with discomfort. No. 12,931. Though those could be outdated statistics, since it's from this morning. I won't tell you how many died from their fright, because it's not fair, but I'll tell you, it's not zero. So yes, I think that if an elderly business owner feels they can't look at your eyes without fainting, they should have a right to require visors. Or maybe they don't want the liability if someone passes out on their premises. It doesn't hurt you, and when you send me an actual diplomat, I'll be happy to pencil in exceptions should you need to remove them for safety or to engage in an activity. As much as I wanted to argue against the proposition, Veln had a valid point over the public health concern. It lingered in the back of my mind that Noah felt responsible for stampede deaths from his arrival, so I knew he'd personally sacrifice his comfort to ensure the safety of Venlil citizens. When framed in that light, the astronaut likely was nodding along with the new governor's logic internally. Most businesses, at least in Dayside City, would be unlikely to employ such a policy, since it would cost them millions of potential customers. It also might help to lessen potential hostility toward Terrans in backwaters like Selgor Falls, where Glim's aunt was housed. Despite prohibition of travel technically being illegal, several businesses and villages already tried to ban humans from their territory. Veln's intention seems to be to score points with his core constituencies, but at least he's thinking of humans and doesn't seem hostile toward them. Venlil don't make decisions for humans, and vice versa. I suspect Terran refugees would be happy with that bargain, not having our values imposed on them. The new governor signaled Free Planet in Tail language before launching into his next policy. Alright, John. I want some funds allocated toward exterminator upgrades, conveniently to upgrade equipment and add new departments to spread the workload. See what I did? I twisted my ears in confusion. You want them to separate their duties? Totally. They worked too hard, and that's all I'm going to give you on my motives. Right, next item. Predator disease facilities. We're launching the Violent Crime Prevention Program pronto. I'm targeting violent strains of the disease with the majority of our resources, which conveniently should give you the sheer majority of what you wanted. Human experts are welcome to draft some guidelines for warning signs, because they know all about violence. Is that the implication? It's not my fault what people assume. I have no control over that, and I'm sure Venlil who'd jumped to that conclusion would believe that about humans regardless. Right, just a few more things. Gotta have a productive day one. Next up, immigrants to Venlil Prime from other worlds will not be allowed to vote until 6 years have passed from the acceptance of their citizenship, to prevent foreign nationals from influencing our politics. Mostly to keep Terran refugees from voting in the next provincial governor elections. Humans shouldn't be able to move to our planet and tell us what to do. Remember what I said about imposing values? I want people who vote to have stayed here and showed their commitment to us. The humans will know who gave them a path to voting rights, and the Venlil people will know who stopped a sudden influx of predators from swaying our elections. Win-win. The more I listened to Veln detail his policies, it seemed that he was attempting to play both sides with compromise items. The governor seemed to agree with various revelations that humans gave us, if I could read between the lines, but he wanted to appease the constituents who weren't thrilled about our entire foundation of knowledge being ripped apart. By my own grudging admission, it was a clever strategy. For the sake of political gain, he was more worried about appearances than reality. I could understand. I gave the perception that I went along with anything suggested by humanity. What I couldn't understand why he'd insisted on spelling out his plan changes with me, a deposed rival in the room. Perhaps this is, as humans say, a wink and a nod to show Veln is on my side for some issues, and that his rhetoric is aimed at winning over the masses? Or is this about gloating that he's a better governor? I heaved a flustered sigh. Congratulations on your victory, Veln, but as the unseated governor, Now an ordinary citizen, I'm not sure why my presence is needed here. What I think of your policies doesn't matter. Oh, but it does. Because I have something in mind for you. The Venlo replied, with a casual tail swish. It's about the Sapient Coalition. Now that we've made our planet's affairs independent from human influence, I have decided it's best to remain in the organization to keep an eye on them. Write this down, Chelm. As I was saying, to keep an eye on them, so we know what they're planning, and can enjoy the pure military benefits of the Alliance. I'm glad to hear that you won't try to withdraw from the Sapient Coalition. But if that's all you wanted me to hear, you could have led with that. Tava, that's your project. Before you were governor, you were our ambassador to the Federation. I want you to resume a role you were actually well suited for, to be our ambassador to the Sapient Coalition. It'll keep you in diplomatic contact with humanity, and honestly, I doubt there's anyone more comfortable or connected in the Earth Department. Plus, I'll be too busy with affairs here to handle that myself. I was silent for several seconds, shocked by the request. With respect, you just said that you didn't want us entangled with humanity. In that role, I imagine I'll be expected to follow your orders and wishes. You'll want me to sell them on policies I don't agree with your policies. I know you know how to do that, Tarva. I'm sure it'll be difficult, after being governor, to take a step down and to answer to the same person you lost to, no less. But I want to show that we're not enemies. Like I said earlier, to lower the political temperature. And if we show how magnanimous I am along the way, wonderful. I thought you'd have some reservations, so I did think of a small incentive as a signing bonus. What's that? Don't you dare lord something involving the humans' welfare over my head. Nonsense, my offer was a benign topic. I wouldn't play with lives. I'm not the Federation. My incentive was about that referendum for the planet's name. In the interest of self-determination, it should be up to the people, though I do intend to speak my piece on why I'm not a fan of Skelga. You agree to be my ambassador, and I'll get the process in motion. I turned an inquisitive gaze on Noah, who'd been silent throughout the process. The human was attempting not to interfere with the newly elected governor, and he wasn't more vocal about what decision I should make. Without saying a word, the sideways glance of his binocular eyes told me that he thought I should follow what I wanted to do. I could rely on his affection and support, as long as I was happy. Beneath that, I could sense that the former ambassador wasn't fond of people like Veln. On a personal level, it was difficult for me to trust anyone who was so calculating with their appearances, but having a chance to ensure our continued friendship with Earth and its allies trumped that. Securing positive relations with the Predators had been my life's most meaningful work. My ears flattened with reluctance. Fine. I'll do it. Glad to hear it. Oh, and before you and Noah run along, if humankind has a particular objection to anything I proposed, I'm willing to negotiate. However, I'd need a concession in return that can score me equal political points, Veln said. Will that be a suitable arrangement, Mr. Williams? Noah dipped his head. We're accustomed to people like you. I'm sure we can work with that. Delightful. I look forward to more productive conversations with your replacement. You both may leave. Cam has classified briefings for the governor's ears only, I'm sure. I forced a polite farewell in tail language, not appreciating that parting shot. Veln couldn't resist sneaking in a reminder of his victory, perhaps in response to Noah's thinly veiled distaste toward him. As we departed the governor's office for the final time, I reminded myself that protecting humanity from persecution was more important than pride. The governor could have been more radical with his newfound power, and it was a small victory that I wouldn't be iced out of galactic politics. I couldn't say that the responsibility of an entire planet would be one I missed. If anything, my narrow defeat allowed Noah and I to spend our future together unrestricted. What came next for humanity and Venlokind was out of my paws now, but I hoped I'd done enough to lay the groundwork for a peaceful future between our two species. The Nature of Predators, 158, Memory Transcription Subject. EC Antar Isif. Arksure Rebellion Command Date Standardized Human Time March 17, 2137. Knowing how unbeloved my species was on Kolkwa, there was no offer extended to the Duetan homogeneity to help with rebuilding and search and rescue. That had been a courtesy to humanity that I couldn't imagine my kind going along with for prey. The avians didn't attempt to drive us and the humans from the system, but they only sent a formal thank you to the Yotel. I wasn't sure whether the Terrans felt slighted, though I sure did. The Duerten were fortunate that my request for temporary aid in restocking munitions to tide us over until we could contact the United Nations wasn't phrased as a demand. My lack of diplomatic aplomb meant it was best that I left the leaf-licking primates to deal with the fallout, especially after how the Shield allied races behaved seeing me at the summit. Cryptic communication from Jones pointed us to a repair outpost within a day's travel, repaying our expenditures without me asking. It was strange to have our fleet congregated so far away from the central sector, since the rebellion's early focus had been pestering agents within Riss's territory. I was aware of the fact that we'd devoted an inordinate amount of attention to the Federation after the surprising partnership between Gisnel and Nikonus was revealed. Protecting Kalqua thwarted the Kolshians' primary target, and now the crux of the war hinged upon whether the Terrans' single-minded push toward Alpha could succeed. That was Zhao's third phase of the war, and rumor had it that Stage 2, cutting the conspiracy off from hundreds of allies, had been achieved through the Federation's staggering lack of cybersecurity. If humanity can get the Kolshian dynasty to surrender, then they'll be able to fight against the Dominion. Gisnel knows that he is weaker than the Federation, by his own admission, which is why Betterment avoided their ire. I narrowed my eyes in the briefing room. The Dominion has not been trying to win a war, yes? I think they do not know how. They have not been active since Shaza's failure at Silas, which brought shame upon the chief hunter's repute. It may be possible to dismantle their operations enough that it is decided not to fight humanity at all. Do you really believe that Gisnel would just surrender? I'm pretty sure he wishes to keep power at all costs, Lisa responded. I think if he believes there is no choice and sees a way to bargain for some control, it may be possible. I am committed to a peaceful future for our people, and in this instance, I imagine your little SC buddies will not stand for Betterment's survival. With our rebellion left outside the organization, I am concerned with ensuring our continued existence as an independent entity, so the more we can reduce Dominion control, the more bargaining power we have over the Prophet descendant if Alpha falls. Kaisel heaved a weary sigh. Survival. I see why you have been focused on coexisting with prey. What we've done, returning cattle, trying to communicate, and saving the Duerten, might temper the calls for our race's genocide. Indeed. I do not think humanity would allow us to be attacked, given how they seek to end this forever war. However, I am concerned over how much free reign we will have, and how we would move forward toward a better future through the galaxy's mistrust. And I want Riss under our control, not some other world with no history. Gisnell must not take our home with him. Oleg adjusted his glasses. So you're looking for ways to reduce Betterment's authority. What could leave Gisnell more paranoid than stripping him of yet another chief hunter who's seen as loyal to the cause? We're in the neighborhood anyways. Ilis, all our intelligence suggests he will stop at nothing to prove himself to Betterment. Young, hot-headed, a true believer. What on earth would convince him to jump ship? Lisa countered. Well, we did hand him the Malti and Dresden homeworlds on a silver platter. If he accepted a tip he knew came from us, then it can't be any more treasonous for him to accept a parlay. I lashed my tail. That was a different circumstance. A raiding opportunity proves his fierceness to Gisnell. Ilithis will not respond to talking. He responds to open strength and personal rewards, and the idea of a world without violence would disgust him. Then show him that the Dominion is weak, Chief Hunter. Kaisel's eyes glowed with new confidence, and his maw parted with eagerness. Show Ilthis the footage of the Dominion, and how they negotiate with the Colchians because they cannot best them. How they do not wish to win the war or hunt well. That's not a bad idea. Perhaps we can show humanity's strength to Ilthis. If humans have the power going forward, rewards from Gisnell are empty. He's proving himself to the wrong team. True strength isn't staying within your role to avoid being crushed by AAU calamari years. Oleg chuckled. I'm surprised you learned that word. I listen to the babbling of you humans when it serves me. If Ithiotel are calling the Colchians a human food delicacy, I would be remiss not to adopt this term. The calamari are responsible for the starvation of my people with the cure, regardless of whether Betterment released the cattle virus, so I have few moral quandaries about anything done to Alpha. I hate those leaf lickers. I hope the Colchians are burned alive in their homes, for how miserable they have made my life. Kaisal growled. Convince Ilthis that true strength is joining the fight at Alpha for his personal glory across and beyond the Dominion. Well, the humans are en route to Alpha as we speak. All I must do is get past the border stations and systems in between. So while I can support bringing Ilthis into the fold, we should craft a plan for how to establish contact with him at once, if you want him to arrive in time. I drummed my claws on the table, in deep thought. Ilys's location was a given, with him likely trying to bloody the Dresden and Maltese nose. Unlike Kalsim's fleet, the duo had retreated some of its ships, even without the stark warning the Crocodile captain had been given. It was my sincere hope that, among the young chief hunters' attempts to grab easy cattle, especially with the egg-laying Malti offering scrumptious delicacies in the form of their unhatched young, I hoped that he had the foresight to take out their shipyards and bases. Coupled with a human cyber attack that should ensure those loyalists didn't ever come kicking around again. Even if Alpha was defeated, the true cultists of the Federation, like the Dresden and the predator-sacrificing Yulpa, would be unlikely to drop out of the fight. Alright, Kaisel. I imagine your plan is for us to head to Dresden and multi-space and offer assistance. I do not particularly wish to preside over raids myself, especially with the harm that would do to our image. This rebellion is about proving that the Arksher are capable of being more than brutal, senseless beasts, I growled. The runt flared his nostrils. I merely wish for you to travel close enough to pinpoint Ilys's command ship. It won't be engaged at the center of the battle, though someone as cruelty proficient as this chief hunter will be trying to get some kills himself. You can extend the hail from there. If I may, why don't we contact an intelligence and see if they've tapped the Oxshire comms enough to connect us via FDL channels? There's no need to put ourselves in the line of fire, Lisa said. Very well, I acknowledged. Zhao is the ideal figure to bargain with, though. Jones is your go-to contact for intelligence. With respect, sir, I'll attempt to go through her. As long as I have your blessing, I can keep her from pushing anything. Fine, but if that plotting human tries to pull some shenanigans, I want us dialing Zhao and Gonli Zhao. Of course. Don't worry, I'll make sure this is quick and to the point. I watched in silence, along with the rest of my advisors, as the primate dialed General Jones. The American intelligence guru had a knowing gleam in her eyes, something which never sat right with me. It was as if she knew what we wanted to ask before any words were said. Terrans could certainly have prying eyes and ears in unexpected places, using technological infrastructure as a weapon. I didn't quite believe her claim that her agencies weren't spying on my people. My guess was that the humans listened in even on Tarva's governorship activities, despite the close alliance. It was fortunate for Earth that they had such a devoted friend in Skalga's highest office. Let's see if Jones gets any ideas about how to use me to her advantage. If Lisa can't get the spy master to help the rebellion out of decency, then I'll never work with her again. I'm not being pushed into doing things outside of my agenda by manipulative means. General Jones raised her hands placatingly. As if, no need to look so skeptical. All we wanted was to split the Dominion and tilt the scales of this war. It was in my national and planetary interests to spur you to action at a few key places, but now, there's no need for subterfuge. I can see you doubt my intentions, but know I'm happy to advance your rebellion's aims. Lisa, I believe you said you would handle the chatter. I do not feel like chatting. You know how Oxshire tire of socializing. Lisa snorted. Yes, I've heard most Oxshire do. Ma'am, we were hoping you could patch us through to Chief Hunter Eyeless. Speaking to him could provide a key opportunity to siphon away Gisnell's allies, or that's the plan. Yes, I definitely support attempts to weaken them without direct engagements. Let me consult my database. What a coincidence, the general exclaimed, wagging a finger. I happened to be looking at Illis's file when you called. I'll transmit his coordinates, and with this access code, you should be able to communicate with his ship. I stifled a sigh as Jones made a few swipes with her fingers. Oleg gave me a nod to signify that he received the data, and Lisa disconnected the call after a formal thanks. I was pleased that we'd been able to attain the information with minimal back and forth, and that it wasn't a conditional offering. My eyes narrowed before I gestured for the two humans and scrawny Kaisel to exit the picture. We couldn't afford to have any sapients nearby that Illis would see as a sign of weakness. The mask of cruelty that I'd perfected from my facade around betterment returned, an unwelcome reminder of my own bloody past. I bared my teeth to signify ferocity, and signaled for Oleg to initiate the call to the fiery chief hunter. Illis responded, after a long stretch of our entreaty going unanswered, as a proper holographic avatar. The chief hunter had taken the time to send the full image of his toned form onto my projector, rather than the basic 2D visual. I suppressed a huff, realizing that I should have done the same. That was how the highest-ranking Dominion officers communicated, so out of the gate, my status seemed inferior to him. The hot-headed Oxer had scars sliced across his muzzle that seemed artificially inflicted. perhaps to signify his toughness. His grey skin had a bit of a green pallor to it, and his features were locked in a permanent scowl. This commander had the swagger of someone who'd fought 1,000 battles. Can't he's trying to compensate for his lack of experience through intimidation. Does Ilthis know what it is to command enough to hold up to the Colchians? LL, if it is not the traitor to the dominance of our people. The filth that bargains with prey, consorting with our enemies, Illis sneered. What is it that you want? I raised my maw in defiance. For starters, I would like some gratitude for the easy hunt I gave you. I know many things about the state of the galaxy. I also know how to position Archer for survival and strength. You forget the first item, is that not so? I would not pass up prey and a chance to showcase my hunting ability. My raids are much crueler than yours. The best you could do was gassing Venlo schools and a few movie reels. Your raid, I'm sure, is quite impressive. That is why I wish to speak with you about more opportunities to demonstrate your talent and make a name for yourself as you seize power with the utmost prowess. Once you hear my reasons for joining your hunt and what I can offer you, you will have no doubts about which side is weak and which side is beneficial to your agenda. I have no reason to listen to your prattling, and I tire of this conversation. Words mean very little when I do not have any reason to believe you are anything but past your prime and defectively weak. This groveling to the feet of my raid acknowledges my superior cruelty with no resistance. You must prove that you are a better chief hunter than me, if I am to listen to this at all. The softened up words you placed in my jaws are the sole reason I took your call, in the interest of more feasts you may know about. A contest of strength is one I can handle. I have seen many battles, and am certain that I can outmaneuver the likes of you. 1,000 of your ships versus 1,000 of mine. No tricks or subterfuge. No reinforcements for a coward's win. If you best my people, Gizna will be delighted that you defeated the pesky rebels and lured us into the open. Elis snorted with a dismissive tone. I'll gain no satisfaction by crushing your ragtag force. It is you, the very head of power, that I doubt. I have a separate proposal, an honorable one. You come to my base without any army or backup, and we engage in ritual sword fighting, Tliskis. Unless you've forsaken your weapon ornaments. Why would I be foolish enough to come alone to your territory for a Tliskis duel? I want to show my worth by defeating the supposedly great Isif, sending your memory to the prey pastures where it belongs. I am no coward that would back down from a fight, especially an easy one against a weak defective. Fine. Go. I trust that you are not so petrified of your betters that you would seek a cheap victory. I noticed that the humans looked horrified at my swift agreement, as if they believed it was folly. Whatever the leaf lickers thought, I had pride left over, and I could tell Elis had too much arrogant confidence to backtrack on his challenge. I will see you humiliated at my blade, and we will speak about why you should join me afterward. Empty words, like all of this talking you adore. When I win, I will execute you. Giznel will know who has slain the traitor from our ranks, and that it was through me superiority. Elis hissed. The chief hunter pounded away at his console, forwarding the coordinates to his base, given that I wished to recruit him to our side. I was not going to take the opportunity to strike the clandestine facility. There were more important enemies than one overly proud Oxshire. The less Dominion ships I needed to slaughter to complete my rebellion's aims, the better. Illis disconnected from the call after a threatening roar, as disdain swirled in his eye slit. I surveyed my advisor's expressions and noticed that Kaisel seemed a bit jealous. The Yorkshire runt must envy how respectable and powerful a soldier slightly older than him had become through the merits of his strength. Keith Ilthis thinks I've lost a step. He'll be in for a rude awakening. I can be calculating and patient. Too much eagerness to prove himself will mean his judgment is clouded by his anger. That doesn't mean I can't physically prepare myself. Without any discussion with my advisors, as the matter was settled, I stood from the table. This was not up for debate, since we needed to strike at the Dominion's very foundation. It was time for me to prepare for the confrontation with Illis. I intended to sharpen my sword and retrain myself in the art of Tliskis. Achieving maximum readiness for our duel would ensure that the probability of victory was turned in my favor as much as possible. The Nature of Predators, 159, Memory. As if Chief Hunter Isif, Yorkshire Rebellion, Command Date, Standardized Human Time, March 18, 2000. The humans and Illis was a poor idea. There was a history on risks of high-class society, settling feuds through this strength display, though there was no obligation to accept such a challenge. I knew I couldn't afford to be seen as weak by my rebels. Doubt had been sown by my friendliness with the humans, and my personal secrecy to hide Feller's presence in the past. Tliskis was nothing so disorderly and random as a single turn and draw of a gun, as I'd read about on Earth. It was practiced as both a sport for training sessions and an unequivocal contest of who the better fighter was. It might be the most social aspect left in our society, even if it was just locking swords. I checked that my ceremonial armor was snug, while adjusting the padding underneath it. The extravagant sword and exquisite gear were fine pieces of craftsmanship, gifts betterment bestowed upon its worthy hunters as symbols of rank. I wore these for important communications and ceremonies, such as when the Prophet Descendant issued commendations for terror-inducing raids. It brought back memories of when I executed the Arxer who refused to eat a gojid, knowing I had to play the fanatic. Slipping into that cruel, familiar persona would be easier than I'd like to admit. After years of practice putting down any comrade who challenged or insulted me, there was no reason I couldn't go toe-to-toe with Illis. My claws hooked around the ornament case. There were 3 fragile squares, the size of a Terran Rubik's Cube, which were crafted from a red crystal called Giqueshuan native to Riss. The intricate patterns that showed up under the UV lights of a Tliskis match made it near impossible to pull off any fakes. Not that I would stoop to such means to win our battle. The crystalline squares had to be attached between our chest and our waist, facing the opponent, and not on any limbs. The winner of the duel was whoever could break all of their rivals' ornaments first. Each time a crystal broke, the round concluded, so the loser could reset their adornment. It was a simple, yet brutal, contest. While attacks toward the head and the neck were prohibited, any other area was fair game for stab wounds. I can withstand the pain of a few cuts. The question is, if my greater experience can counter Illis's faster speed, success will be achieved by outwitting his strategy. As I approached the fated site alone, there were no treasonous moves from the young chief hunter. His morality was self-serving and dubious, but he respected strength and courage. He wanted to best me beyond any doubts. so that meant no tricks were forthcoming. It would be strategically prudent to take me out of the picture and forsake pride, yet his hot-headedness prevented him from suppressing his arrogance here. At this age, in his prime, Illis likely thought he was invincible. His aggression, attempting to humiliate me out of the gate, was almost a certainty. I also believed that if I won, he would humor a persuasion attempt to join our side, per his word. Kaisal hailed my transport as it docked with Illis's designated habitat. "Ancestors speed your victory, Chief Hunter. May his blood wet your sword." "Thank you," I responded, steadying my nerves. "I have a purpose to fight for, beyond myself. The purpose of our entire people. A future that is worth great sacrifices. Besides, there are some selfish gains. I will have your eavesdropping human friends know that I am no insofty." "Swinging the sword won't prove that," Oleg chirped. "It will when I swing the sword at your neck and lop your skull clean off. That would put an end to your conspiracy theories, yes?" "Actually, no. In the event of my death, I've set up a cache of evidence for various government plots to be uploaded, so that nobody can silence my findings. For instance, I don't trust them doing cure research. They're undoing the cure, but what else are they doing? There's no oversight, and the planetary security excuse is horseshit. What are they doing, Oleg? Cloning people for bullet fodder? Putting a kill switch in the DNA of anyone who likes conspiracies? There'll come a day where they're able to know everything about you, even your deepest thoughts, just by observing a few elements of your biology, and it'll be a lot sooner than you think. Laugh all you want, Lisa, but we're welcoming the death of privacy with open arms." I heaved a flustered sigh. "Enough. You are distracting me before an important contest with your incessant chatter. If you ever talk like this on the bridge, I'll feed you to Illis in pieces myself." "Ah yes, cannibalism is such a funny joke with your hist." I disconnected from the channel, hissing with exasperation. At least those two humans being their infuriating selves brought me a notch closer to combat mode. Sometimes, I yearned to take a metal blade to their ornaments. My facial features hardened into a menacing mask, devoid of emotion, and I disembarked to face off with Illis in person. The chief hunter was waiting with the smugness of someone who believed they'd already won. My paw drifted to the hilt of my sword, though it stayed in my scabbard. I wasn't going to take a premature swipe at him, but the gesture of animosity would get through. I don't miss having to communicate in cruelty, unable to hint at any emotions. That said, I was pretty good at pretending, isn't that right? Illis smacked his tail on the ground energetically. "Huss, this fool believes he is the finer chief hunter. I'm sure he was grey in the old days, but he's strayed from the path. I'm surprised he remembers how to hold a sword. What a lovely greeting. I say we go straight to the Tiskies, since this conversation is a waste, yes? Works for me. I'll have you know that my raid against the Dresden was sublime. We landed raiding parties and set off demolition charges in their caves. Burying villages like that, huh? That's a new one, my idea. How masterfully cruel. I imagine you would not have come back if you managed to keep the planets. You did not even mention the multi. I'm not idiotic enough to waste resources. Those mindless animals are fighting among themselves, so I hardly need to bomb them. I'm surprised the cowardly prey don't stampede the second one of their own throws a claw swipe. The humans can be attributed to this unrest. They put your raid to shame. They dismantled the foundation of over 200 worlds. As if I'd believe that. There were none of those fennel-loving apes in sight. That is why they are so terrifying, Illithis. You do not see a lethal virus in action, it kills in its silence. The Terrans I know of refuse to kill anyone. That was the whole premise of the fight at Silis and Fall, warring so those who helped bomb them would live. The enemies of Earth that fell were by your maneuvering. A point of contention between us. They choose to minimize bloodshed, but I have no doubt that humanity could lay waste to the galaxy if they didn't. The Federation should be afraid of what they tried to awaken. Their cleverness is if no sales pitch from you means a morsel until you have any strength to flaunt. I suggest you think of your last words for when you're executed for your defeat. I do not need to waste time preparing for things that will not happen. Elis growled at me, eyes narrowed to crazed slits. The two of us had reached the Tliski's arena. On opposite sides, I could see starting paths scattered a few seconds of running apart. The pedestals in the center offered places to climb or use the environment to our advantage. As the rival, Chief Hunter strapped his first ornament over his armored stomach, I considered the placement of my own object. If the ornament broke, even as a result of my actions, it would count for Illis as long as it didn't happen after a tally of mine. Staying up on my feet and avoiding dropping my weight onto the fragile item would be crucial. With a grunt of determination, I tightened the band around my sternum and fixed my ornament right in the center. Kin range of both arms to defend, so it's safer from any sidelong stabs toward the hip. If I fall, I can catch myself on all fours to avoid breaking it. Everything aside from head and neck shots, and attacks such as biting or headbutting were fair game, so I needed to watch for any ambitious tail swipes from Ithis. I also should throw in the occasional kick or slash of my own to keep him on his toes. It might serve me to knock over his platform, rather than contest the elevation, if the young Archer went for the high ground. I drew my sword with confidence, ready for a frenetic clash of wits and body. Tliski's was an exhilarating format, though I wasn't sure whether my reflexes were quite as sharp as they used to be. Still, my experience was nothing to laugh at, and I was certain I could outthink any Dominion lackey. A cautious approach would take the wind out of his sails, along with granting me insight into his strategy. I stepped onto the starting pad and lowered myself to a lunging stance, with my body facing toward the ground. The ornament would be angled away from Illis. The other chief hunter was going to meet only my sword, and if my head was facing him, he couldn't swing at it without being disqualified. If my head was intentionally maneuvered in the path of a blow, that was the sole way it could be ruled a fair shot. I lashed my tail to signal readiness, and Illisis did the same. The young chief hunter had no sooner smacked his pad with force before he raced toward the pedestals, cresting one as tall as an Arxer without using the lower platforms as stepping stools. He stared me down from the powerful vantage point, realizing I was staying put. Coward. What? You frozen like, I pray? Going to wet yourself and faint? Ilithis jeered. The chief hunter lunged with staggering power from his hind legs, leading sword first. With the pointed tip blazing toward me, I was doubtful I could parry his blistering momentum. There was no time to sidestep before Illis landed nearly atop me, careful to keep his maw turned away from me. His sword finished its trajectory. The young Archer wasn't aiming for the ornament I guarded. instead driving his blade into my thigh. I staggered from the pain, shoving him away with the pommel. My rival landed with grace on all fours, absorbing the momentum through his paws and keeping the crystal strapped to his stomach safe. He took crazed swings toward my Quechua token, and though I saw his tail coming, I could barely fend off the sword by itself. My hind legs were swept out from under me with a brutal lash, and it was all I could do to keep my blade from clattering to the floor. Illis scrambled toward me, wrapping his tail around my weapon. He wrenched it from my dazed grip, ignoring how the sharp edges lacerated his skin. A gloating glint shone in his eyes as he shattered my crystal into tiny fragments with an unnecessarily forceful swing. I could feel the impact through my armor and struggled to shake it off. After collecting my weapon, I disguised my limp on my walk to the ornament collection. Failure to reset quickly was considered forfeiture. I donned my new cube and hustled back to the pad. With how impressive my opponent's aggression was, I could see why he climbed the ranks at a young age. I lashed my tail. "Is that the best you can muster?" Illis signaled his readiness, and this time I opted not to wait for him to come to me. I sprinted toward the pedestal at the same time as him, weaving around the column while keeping low to the ground. The chief hunter had climbed the platform again, but was unable to get a clean stab at me. He twirled in my direction, just as I wildly swatted with my sword toward his belly. My rival's blade moved in a blur, an instinctual response. His reaction was near instantaneous, deflecting my brazen attempt. I scrambled backward as he rolled to the ground, and tracked his movements and cues. His legs tensed before he dashed toward me. I forget the ornament. I need to cripple him and limit his speed. I feinted a swing at his crystal before thrusting my blade into his knee and twisting. Illis howled, but had the presence of mind to hold my blade in his wound. I couldn't pull it away without giving him clean access to my crystal, so I released my grip. Crimson blood gushed from his deep gash as he ripped the weapon out. The chief hunter favored his leg so much that he barely put weight on it. The young archer crossed my blade with his own, flaunting his dual wielding. I couldn't conjure any unarmed strategies. It might be best to break my crystal on purpose, get my sword back for the next round, and avoid further injuries. But that would leave me with one crystal. Was I that confident? My leg was injured from its own stab wound, though it was less destabilizing. I was without a weapon, left to defend myself with my arms and a nimbleness that was long gone. The possibility of my total defeat crossed my mind, but I recognized that this was the best strategic option, even if my pride spurred me to keep pressing. The humans had taught me anything could be a weapon, everything but the kitchen sink. I ripped the ornament from my chest and hurled it at Illis. If I was going to destroy it, I might as well rain glass shards on his other leg. Aksha might not have Terran's arm torsion, but chucking an object at the ground was within my capabilities. The chief hunter snarled at my opportunistic forfeiture, losing his footing when pain shot up his good leg. He stayed down for several seconds, still not standing after I donned my last crystal. "My sword," I demanded, snatching it from his grip. "You cannot fight on his?" The chief hunter used his own blade to prop himself up, and leaned on it to stagger back to his pad. He lashed his tail in defiance, raising his sword into a defensive posture. I signaled my readiness, while collecting my wits. This was now a must-win duel, but Illis looked hobbled after the previous round. As the new sequence commenced, it was my enemy remaining stationary in his starting spot, grimacing as he stood. The archer was flexing the leg that the ornament shattered against, but but the other limb had lost its functionality altogether after the surgical cut. He brandished his sword with frustration. Snarling, I took my time stalking forward and kept just out of range, moving from side to side so he was forced to turn awkwardly. The longer this went on, the more Illis would be testing his exhausted pain tolerance. I faked a lunge forward, laughing as he made a frantic sword move to block. I moved just within range and swiped toward the ornament, connecting with his metal weapon on purpose. While my rival struggled to bat away my blade, my tail snapped his better leg out from under him. All of his weight was thrown onto the wounded limb, causing him to shriek in anguish. His focus waned as he fell, and I snaked my sword around his to break a crystal. The chief hunter took several attempts to get up, and stewed as he realized he needed to walk to retrieve a new item. The only prize of a loss is to talk about something that will benefit you, I said. Forfeiture would spare you the pain. You can go get treatment. Elias almost hopped one-legged over to his box. I should have watched for the limb cut a round ago, but an Arxer fight's on. All I need is to break one more ornament of yours. You're still slow, old, and weak to be empathizing with my pain. This is not empathy, as much as an admission of your pathetic state, unworthy of a duel with me. Hurry up, or you will be disqualified. The chief hunter secured his jaw around his sword to muffle whimpers and tried to run over to his pad. He crashed onto the starting spot in the nick of time, thumping his tail as he was still on all fours. To my surprise, Illis stayed down this time, deciding he was better off low to the ground. It was a valid play, given that I couldn't swing at his head from my high angle, however. It surrendered all mobility and exposed many vulnerable spots. My rival hugged his knees to his chest, with his tail and arms shielding the ornament with his flesh. I inched forward, considering my strike with caution. Before I could jab at the sensitive wounded area, Illis sprang to his feet, despite the pain, and swept his sword in a wide arc. I barely leapt back in time, leaning my upper body backward to protect the ornament. His sharp instrument clanged against the armor of my stomach, and sucked the breath from my lungs from the force. I parried a second attempt to swing upward, and stumbled backward in a hurry, knowing he couldn't follow my retreat. Illis's eyes looked crazed, and his nostrils flared before he sank back to all fours, stripped of his willpower. Certain that he couldn't lunge from this awkward fall, I rushed forward and swung at his wounded leg. The chief hunter overcommitted to defending that painful area, allowing me to twist the point towards the true target. My sword glided up, just enough to glance his crystal, shattering it. Illis grunted. Fuck you. I only need one hit. Are you delusional? You cannot fight me in this state, and it will only damage your reputation to crawl around like this, I spat. No? I fight to the last. The chief hunter hurried over to the box, as best as he could with a maimed limb, and thrashed his tail once he was hunched back over on the pad. I was growing tired, but that just prompted me to end this bout with swiftness. All I needed was to break the final ornament, and I could achieve my goal of persuading him to abandon Betterment. Our cause could use the extra forces a chief hunter would bring to the table, and if he agreed to raid Afa after hearing about Gisnell's arrangement with the Colchians, that might help the Terrans to focus on the Dominion after this clash. I marched back to my pad, thrumming my tail to start the deciding round. Illis stumbled forward with aggravated hisses. Stealing a page from his book, I waited for him to draw close enough before using a small pedestal to boost myself up to the highest one. My rival paused, expecting me to lunge at him. However, not willing to risk my crystal shattering in the chaos, I leapt short of where Illis waited. It was then that I kicked in my last burst of speed, jabbing my sword at his gut with all of my strength and willpower. The enemy didn't bother to defend, instead taking it as an opportunity to go for my crystal. I drove my blade through the fragile Quechua and heard my own shatter a half-second later. The young chief hunter recognized that I'd landed the break first, rather than contesting who won, and conceded the match with a grudging huff. He seemed relieved to be able to sit down and mend his wounds. Fine, I. Spill out why the fuck you think I should side with a defective like you, but I doubt I'll be persuaded. I'll honor my word and let you leave after this is through, Illis growled. I pulled my holopad from atop my waiting belongings. I'm going to show you a single video of Gisnell talking to the late Nicanus. Yes, then the leader of the Federation. If you can't parse that the Dominion is afraid of the Colchians, and that they don't want us to win, unlike humanity and me, nothing I say will matter. You do have much energy and fight, and I respect those qualities. Betterment isn't worthy of your strength, not when they are the ones in league with all of our leaf-licking foes. That's preposterous. Betterment would never bargain with prey like you do. Good thing I have evidence to prove this very statement. Hear it with your own keen ears, yes? The young chief hunter took my holopad with reluctance. I watched his facial expression grow enraged as he listened to Gisnell appeasing the Colchians and promising not to push too far in the war as to actually win it. It was the humans who Nicanus blasted as a major setback, and my rebellion which the prophet descendant hated for thinking we could rule all by ourselves. I was ready to jump in with evidence of our triumphs and innovations, how our side pushed the boundaries of warfare, when this video was over. Something told me that there was a good chance of getting Ilvis to send his troops to Alpha. This was the fight Betterment shied away from, and weakness was an admission he abhorred. My success in the duel could give both humanity and the rebellion an advantage in our respective fights.